Did you guys see that post-credit scene? Superman. Listen, I'm not saying we're back, but we may.
It's over. We are screwed.
What's up, DCEU fans?
What you say?
Today we're talking Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It's a sequel. Let's do it. So in this movie, Black Manta will stop at nothing to take down Aquaman once and for all. To defeat him, Aquaman must turn to his imprisoned brother Orm, the former King of Atlantis, to forge an unlikely alliance in order to save the world from destruction. This movie's rated PG-13 for sci-fi violence and language. It's the nail in the coffin of the DCEU, and I'm not saying every movie was bad because I like a fair share of them. Man of Steel, yes. Zack Snyder's Justice League, yes. But if we look past the ones that worked, there are a lot that don't work, and the continuity is a mess. The entire universe, it just never really came together like they imagined. And at the end of the day, setting us up for excitement last year and then crushing our dreams was detrimental to my mental health. But I am looking forward to the new DCU. See, I'm on both sides. You can do that, Twitter.
Come on! Open your eyes!
Look, this is one of those movies that I just kept forgetting about at the beginning of the year. I'm like, well, now the DCEU's over. Okay, well, now the DCEU's over. No, we still have Aquaman, and it feels... I keep shaking this, sorry. Feels like even the studio's not getting behind this film. No crazy fan screenings like they did The Flash. No red carpet premiere. Jason Momoa in interviews saying, yeah, if people watch it, otherwise...
It's over.
All that being said, my expectations for this film, they weren't just low. They were at the deepest and darkest point. Some would say, underwater. I was excited for the first film. I think the marriage between Aquaman and James Wan works really well in my head, but execution-wise, the first film had its moments. It was fun enough, but okay, let's see if the sequel can surpass that. Expectations super low. All of that to say, this film isn't as bad as I thought it would be because I thought it would be absolutely terrible. I came out actually enjoying some of the moments, specifically between Aquaman and Orm. A big part of that is Patrick Wilson, who is really into this role. I think he and Momoa both are just having a great time together on screen. The moments where they're ad-libbing kind of this buddy cop dynamic, that's cool, right? If the film would have committed to that and made that the movie and nothing else going on, okay, that's great. But there is also this big old background story going on with Aquaman and his family and the bloodlines and this revenge quest by Black Manta. But it's really not him. It's something taking over his brain. So that almost defeats the excitement that I had for his character because I loved the idea of that arc in my head. But it's really not that in the movie. Not going to spoil it for you, just in case you don't want to know what it is. But it involves Aquaman and his bloodlines, and Aquaman is now a dad. He is, he has all of these things going on, and the love of his life in Mara, played by Amber Heard, Warner Brothers is very clearly trying to bury that character very deep. But the movie kind of revolves around his family life, the love of his life, his child, and, well, that's one of the things. The character is somewhat prominent, while Amber Heard really doesn't have anything to say or do. So it's almost pointless to have that storyline in general because they give her nothing to do. I think cutting that character and making it just about Aquaman and his son and throwing his dad in there, that would have made more sense because there's nothing there character-wise. The writing, I think the writing for a lot of these characters is just so poor because it's almost like the focus of the writers is on other things as opposed to giving us something for these side characters to do. They'd get nothing to do other than spout out lines of dialogue every now and then. And that's why when the focus was on Aquaman and Orm, when they're together doing their buddy cop thing, I was actually enjoying it because their chemistry is so good, and they're really the only two characters with anything of note. Even Black Manta. I love Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I think he's perfect for the character, and they built him up so well in the first movie to come in this film and do something crazy. And he does, but it's not him doing it. It's like the Emperor's in his brain going, do it. I know you got this whole backstory, but here's all the things you're going to do that I'm going to make you do because it's all about me now. Do it. And I didn't care about that character. I didn't care about anything to do with unleashing this darkness onto the earth because I didn't really feel the stakes of that. It's a big movie. It's a grand film. It's a spectacle, a sci-fi spectacle underwater. We'll talk about the underwater sequences. But when you don't really care about what is inevitably the main villain's motivations, and they just kind of do away with what I thought was going to be really cool, you end up with Aquaman 2. Now, the visuals. I had some issues with the underwater scenes this time around because they just weren't as pleasant to look at as they were in the first movie. And maybe that's the whole Avatar effect coming out and looking as phenomenal as it did. But they just kind of stand around instead of float around. And I know that's not a big difference, but it is when you're wanting something from these scenes that aren't delivering with the dialogue. At least give me a visual spectacle. And some of the fight sequences are cool. Again, sci-fi underwater. That's what Juan is, well, that's what the studio's going for here. And we get that at points. The fight sequences, the camera movements following Orm at one point in the third act. There's a big one take there. That was really cool. Some of the battles, you don't care as much about who or what, but they look cool visually, right? So I'm not going to knock it as hard as other people are probably knocking it because it was somewhat entertaining. But when you don't care as much about the story happening and there's no focus and there's like 5 or 6 things it's trying to focus on, you're just not as invested as they want you to be. So it's a lot of style, not as good style as the first, with very little substance beyond what I look at as our main 2 characters here. And then looking at what's happening here, the villain's plan and Randall Park, his role in the film, I thought his character was honestly more interesting than some of the other more main characters in the movie, but they really go for it at points to try and make you emotional, and then they back out of whatever they're committing themselves to at that point to where you never fully feel the stakes. Even when Momoa is actually committing to some nice emotion, something's always getting in the way, like awkward slow-mo, and then the scene fades to black. I'm just like, why would you make that decision at that point? And then backing out of all of the things that I think they're about to do. And look, this is a very comic booky movie. I say that, it's a comic book movie, but it does feel like a comic book movie in a good way. And they are taking things from this original story. I really like that. But they didn't fully commit to a few of those moments. And look, I'm not saying they had to do the thing that's really, really dark. I wouldn't want to see that. As a dad, I don't want to see that. But beyond that, some other characters, it's just, there's no stakes in this movie. And by the time you get to the end, they just kind of wrap a little bow on it. And that's it. That's the end of the DCEU. No stakes, just sort of lifeless, fun enough. Not a disaster, so that's good.
It's over.
It's just a forgettable sequel, and I hate that. I love Momoa's Aquaman. He's really good as this character. He's had a lot of time to grow as this character, but this character in this movie doesn't really grow at all. The story arc, it's not an arc. It's just kind of there, and it almost negates what they did for him in the last movie. I'm very confused by why they went in this direction. Before I give you my score, let me know your thoughts on Aquaman The Lost Kingdom. Is that the name? And then tomorrow morning, Rebel Moon. If you're excited for that, drop a like down below. While much bigger and somewhat better than anticipated, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom struggles to provide much substance with its style. The highlight is the chemistry between our 2 former foes. There are opportunities to lean more into the emotional stakes, but the script, it just never really commits to that, doesn't really commit to anything, and with a whimper, the DCEU goes off into the night. Yeah. I need to reflect, man. There were some good things that came from this universe, and some bad things. So thank you so much for watching this video. Would you like to see my top 5 DCEU movies? This one will not be on that. See you soon.